I am Caroline Rena, and this is The Ride of My Life and Poem Talks. And I've been doing this for a couple of weeks now, and this particular one is it's really interesting because I keep going deeper. This one I actually wrote on July 30th, about 4 days before my birthday, on August the 3rd, where I turned, how old am I? 57. So I'm getting ready to be 58. Yay! And what I find interesting is the thoughts that came up at this time. And it's funny because usually around my birthday, I start to do, reminiscing and thinking and what I want to do for my future and all this. So it was a pretty powerful time. And I had just, I believe I explained on another video that I had just gone through some things that I needed to start really taking a look at myself and my life. And this just happened to be the thing that came up that day. So I'm just going to go right in and read it. And then I'll kind of share a little bit after with where I was at that point. I want to let you know that at times this still can be hard for me to share this because of the depth of the healing that I went through. However, I also am beginning to recognize and know myself more and better. And I'm able to understand that this was all part of the process of coming to find the truth of who I call it, the truth of who I am. Some people will say your essential self. Some people have everybody's got something, whatever that they want to call it. But for me, it's just finding that truth about who I am. And the more I do the healing, the more I do research, the more I release, the more I grieve, the more I dig in, the more I have found that who I am is actually this, the sensitive being that I've always been. I remember being like having this sweetness about me when I was little, but I was always told that, I'm too sensitive, or too emotional, I'm too this, I'm too that. It was never something I could never fit in. And at this point in my life, I really don't care whether I fit in or not. So I must have gone over that hump or whatever it is where you don't care. So I just want to share this. This is really an important one that I'm noticing. It's called Just Choose and See. And it's kind of a progression into, the way I thought about myself, the way people thought about me, the way I moved forward, and the understanding of how I am able to do the healing work and be persistent and know that really the main goal here is because I just want to have inner peace. And I know that the more inner peace that I have, it kind of projects itself out into the rest of the world. And I think that's so important because we kind of need more peace. I just did a talk on the Wisdom app that was called Inner Peace in a Chaotic World. And it was crazy because like all these people just started jumping onto this thing. And I didn't even really say anything. I mean, literally it was about a minute and a half to 2 minutes that I started kind of talking about what it was. And all of a sudden everybody, or all these people were starting to jump on. And it was incredible. So what I'm noticing though, is that seems to be something that people are looking for, is this inner peace. And inner peace is important. And the more inner peace that we have within ourselves, the more we can be in the world and be peace. Like, I mean, think about people like Mother Teresa, or any avatar, Jesus or whatever, they walk through, they just walk through a space and they're emitting this peace, and people are like, they want to be near them. They want to feel that also. It's like, it's interesting how this works. And I've always been curious about it, but now I'm starting to see and understand what this is. And it's so powerful. Anyway, so let me go ahead and read this one. Just choose and see. I am beginning to see that I am not me, conforming to what others wanted me to be, the plight of always being good, my spirit locked up, therefore misunderstood. I tried and tried to let them see who I am, yet no one would agree. How important it was to allow my spirit for freedom as I am, rather than being adherent. When we are taught to be a certain way, we lose ourselves in the process because it becomes about they, the all-knowing and infamous they we must follow, taking all of our feelings in now we must swallow. The fear, the shame, the anger too, just to pretend to be someone as we withdrew from ourselves, from our being, from our spirit we hide, to make sure we please others and hope to feel good inside. That does not work. It cannot do. The older we get, the more we review. What society believes and what we hold dear may not be the same, but we are expected to bear. The ways of the world as women and as men in a patriarchal society that pushes us down, and when we attempt to surface, we hear the wrath that we are bucking a system that has lost its path. A system that does not understand human beings, that relates to us as if we shouldn't be seen or heard. As generations ago, we taught our children to be wise, you must be quiet and sit and stay hidden. Then when we grow up, after listening to those rules, we forget who we are and start feeling like a fool for listening to people who were raised just the same to keep this act going as we sat in shame. Not knowing at all what our truth is inside, constantly working at figuring things out, trying to hide, turning to addiction, depression, and fear, constantly searching for answers to appear. They're not coming, now what do I do? Listening to Facebook and news that has two things to say, do this, not do that, no, now this is where you go. No wonder anxiety and grief are in overflow. I've learned to watch from the middle of this. What goes on around me is pulling people into an abyss, but I'm really sure that's not where they want to go. But how do we stop all this chaos to go with the flow? One way I have found is to sit with myself and decide for me, not for anyone else. It is time that we know that the answers are not out there. Time to accept that we are part of the issues. We get to be aware that we made decisions that brought ourselves to a place throughout the generations, and now we feel lost in space. Now is the time to face there's an issue. Let out the tears and the snot, get the tissue. Until we release all this pain deep inside, there is no room there for us to rise. Like the phoenix that comes back again and again. We can do this, and there is no timing of when. The more we dig inside and learn to relieve, we learn to let go and we learn to grieve, or we get to grieve. Let all that stuff out, and when it's time, the best of who we are comes out. We've committed no crime. We are who we are, and that is good enough. If others can't understand that, then we get to rebuff what they think that we ought to be, knowing to the depths of ourselves that we are really free. We decide to change the way we live and see life, and sometimes the journey cuts deep like a knife. But here's the thing I want you to know. Be gentle with yourself and take it slow. Walk this path and you will find amazing things and people and a bit of the divine. It's all waiting for you. You just get to make a choice. Time to stand up for yourself and use your voice. We are here, time to listen to us. We get to play the game of life with those we can trust. And to get there, we just get to believe. in ourselves. We can do it. Just choose and see. Oh, okay. I think that was one of my good, really, really good days of writing poetry. I was just wow. So what I was really trying to show was that as human beings in this world, we're taught things and we see things and we learn taught, and we experience things that don't fit, that don't resonate with who we are inside. And when we start to feel angry and anger, shame, sadness, fear, and we think that we're not good enough, or we think that, there's something wrong with us, we start to basically like shut down on ourselves. I've noticed that. And I noticed that as that happened with me, I could feel the tension in my body, and my nerves were just like, I was always in pain. And the more that I started to release that, because it wasn't helping me any, I didn't feel that peace. I felt constantly like I was drowning, like I was, and for lack of better ways of saying it, it's interesting because my mother, when she was going through all the things that she went through in her life, she would always say that people were attacking her. And I never could understand that until I started to like dive into this, and I could see where that attack was. But what was interesting is, even though it felt like the attack was coming from out there, it started in here, because I didn't feel like I deserved to be in a wonderful relationship, or I didn't deserve to have a wonderful, job, or, whatever that was. And the more I felt undeserving, the more I felt like other people were attacking me. And yes, in a lot of cases, it was the other person's wounding that did that as well. However, my healing process was like diving into that and finding that I was the one that was actually creating that with my energy. And my energy was always fearful. It was always shame. It was always, I held anger deep down inside. And I recognized that, I was following this like guideline of how to be in the outside world. And that's not who I was. I was in the Army, for goodness sake, for 8 years. I'm a sensitive person. I pick up on all kinds of things. That is not a place for me to be, but I was there because I wanted to make my dad proud of me. And the crazy thing is, I'm sure he was in his own way, but what was interesting was he could never tell me that. And he could never say it the way I needed to hear it as a child, or, even as a young adult. I'm proud of you. He couldn't say that. I confronted him. It wasn't even a confrontation. It was like, hey, want to go to lunch? I can tell you all about myself, because I never felt like he really knew me or understood me. And so we had a conversation. And then at one point in the conversation, I said, are you proud of me? And he said, of course I am. And I'm like, well, that's a weird way to tell somebody they're proud of you, but it wasn't, that was all his wounding. So it was just things I had to walk through, and we learn how to live life from people who are wounded. And then we feel like there's something wrong with us, that we're not good enough, or whatever that is. And then we start to live our lives wounded. And then we transfer that down to the next generation. And so that's called either generational trauma, intergenerational trauma, transgenerational, I think, trauma, So it's all this trauma that's going from generation to generation because of what we were taught. And my goal in this was like, I gotta break this cycle. This is ridiculous. I don't want to feel like this anymore. I don't want to be I was on medications for antidepressants for 6 months, and I hated every minute of it and got off. And I was basically making myself miserable through self-sabotage. And I was going through all these things because of all these things that I believed about myself that were not true. And now what I see, because I made that choice to shift that, and because I'm very persistent, And I'm not, and that's just who I am. I just don't want to be in that space. So I find different things. I go inside, I find different ways, I release, I do all this healing work. I grieve, like, I've been doing, I depend on grief now because I think it's important to grieve. So whenever something feels like it's coming up, I'll just grieve, and I couldn't do that before. I couldn't touch that inside of me. I was scared to go inside of me. It was like, inside it's dark. There's demons in there. It's not something where that feels like this, place I want to be. I'd rather have things happy and light. But the challenge is that we can't have the happiness and the light without the darkness, because it's dichotomy. It's, you have to know one in order to know the other. And that's been my experience through this process. So I just wanted to share with you that there's no, even though there's a stigma, thank goodness it's not as bad as it used to be. There's a stigma on healing, on doing mental health, on healing yourself. I look at it as a mind, body, soul, spirit, heart thing. It's all interconnected. It's not just a mind thing where we can talk about healing or read about, you can do all of it together and mix it up, but you can't, it's really challenging to do just one thing at a time. So if you just strictly work on, like the talking about it, then you're missing something. You're missing a piece where, by the way, all these feelings that you have are literally being held in your body. And if you don't release that, then it has no place to go, and it can become depression. It can become an addiction. It can become anxiety. It can become a disease if it gets too bad, if it goes on for a long time. And it's interesting because there have been times where I would get these things happening to me. I had a thyroid thing happen. I had, these back things happening and pain and all this stuff. And I'd go in there and they're like, this is my favorite. So they do x-rays, they do this. There's nothing wrong with you. And I'm like, yeah, except something's going on. And then what I would remember is that the energy that I'm holding inside of me is the preemptiveness of a disease. And I'm like, this is not something that I choose to proceed with. And then I just convinced myself to go through the process of releasing the energy of these feelings that didn't need to be there, that I had been holding in. And what I found out too was that I was holding in feelings for other people, like my parents. Like, I felt complete and utter shame for years and years and years and years. And it turned out that that was my mother's shame, because especially with mother, we take in our mother's emotions, especially when we're in the womb. Her emotion, I don't know what the words are, but it's like there's a cascade or something where, the chemicals and our emotions cause chemicals in the body, and the chemicals are going through the bloodstream, and the bloodstream is going through the fetus, and the fetus is in there picking up on every emotion. And my mother was in complete shame when she was pregnant with me. And I couldn't figure out why I was in such shame. Part of it was me, that's for sure. I did recognize and find that there were reasons why I felt shame in my life, but a lot of it was hers. And so at the beginning, one of the things I did was hypnosis, and that they do a timeline thing, and it kind of walked me back in there to look down on that time frame when I thought that it had started, which was in utero. And it was so interesting to feel that kind of energy. It was just energy releasing, and I felt lighter, and I felt like, like something I didn't need left me, released me. And I went through years and years and years. I think I did hypnosis probably for about 3 or 4 years consistently. And it helped to let go of a lot of different things. But I'm just sharing the hypnosis piece. What I want you to know is that there's so many different things out there that if hypnosis doesn't resonate with you, then find something that does and try it. And if it still doesn't resonate with you, then find something else and try it. But the choice, the point is that there's a choice. We have a choice, and even not choosing to heal is a choice. And choosing to continue to suffer is a choice, because we're choosing to suffer. We don't have to suffer. And from my generational trauma and my lifetime traumas, there's a lot of suffering going on. I was raised Jewish, so there's like the Holocaust suffering. There's all kinds of suffering that Jews went through, and so in the DNA, there's this underlying tone of suffering, and I just didn't want to suffer anymore, and I didn't know what that was at first until I started doing these processes and working through it. And again, I will tell you, the major tool, the best tool that I have learned is breathing, and breathing through anything that comes through you. If you get angry and you breathe, it will calm your central nervous system down, and it will slow you down and bring you back into your, be able to think brain, and it will help you to slow down and see what you're doing and stop the process, stop it dead in its tracks. I learned that we have like a split second when we get angry, that a chiropractor taught me this. He said that the blood shunts from the thinking part of the brain, which is here, back to the reptilian part of the brain, or the mammalian part of the brain, where it's reactive. And when the blood does that, it shunts, it goes from here back here. And have you ever heard of anger making you see red? It goes through, from what I understand, the occipital region, which is your vision. So it's the blood. You're seeing red because the blood is going from here to here. So there's that split second that we have to recognize that we're going into that space, that we still have time to change our mind and stay here in the present moment, where you can do things like, for people who have been traumatized, there's like, you can tap on your shoulders. Also, besides, continue to breathe. You can, tap on your legs. I am doing that. You can just stop and look and take a breath. And if you're in an argument with somebody, you could always just say, hey, I'm going through something, I need a timeout. And if it's somebody that you really, there's different scenarios, but you don't want to hurt the person that you're yelling at. You really don't. But sometimes you do want to, but it's the anger that's talking. It's your ego that's talking. It's all of that stuff that's causing that feeling. So if you're angry with somebody, you just say, well, just stop it in the moment and just say, look, I need to go take a timeout. I need to go breathe. I need to go center myself before I say something that I will regret or don't mean or anything like that. And you just say, I will be back in 5-10 minutes, whatever, pick a time. It's so important to communicate that, though, instead, because there are people that I've experienced that would get angry and they would just walk out of the room, and it wasn't something I said in that moment. It was something they felt, and they left, and that's called being passive aggressive. And when people are passive aggressive, the person that they leave behind is generally someone who's had abandonment issues. So it reverberates back into the abandonment issue, which happened with me. And I thought I did something wrong. And I didn't even say anything. They just got to the boiling point and they walked away. And then I was like, well, what, just leave me hanging. And so after the fact, I had learned that that's their way of coping. That's their way of dealing with it. But if you want to have a relationship with somebody, you can't just walk away and not say anything to the other person. There has to be a communication in there. You care about that person for some reason, or you wouldn't be in a relationship with them. So one way to do it is to let them know, I got to go calm down, or I've got to go deal with this on my own. I promise you, I will come back in 5 minutes. Just let me go breathe. And that actually helps to soothe the person who has abandonment issues down, to hear that, hopefully, where they can take a second thought and be like, okay, maybe I need to calm down too. But there's so many different ways of doing it, and you just have to find your way, because in the long run, we all want to love and be loved. That's just who we are as human beings. We wanted that from, from our relationship with mother, and probably didn't get it. So now we're looking for it in other places. But here's the thing: the only place you're going to get that relationship, that love relationship, first and foremost, is in here. And finding that in yourself, releasing all these things that you're holding on to that are wounds, and just and finding that peace within yourself will create freedom for you. It will create joy. It will create, you have that love, and you can, just like I said earlier, you walk through a room and people will see that. People will feel that from you, and they will bring that to you. So it's like, it's all energy. All of it is energy, and it's beautiful energy. It's just being able to release that that hurt and that pain and the trauma and all of that stuff that we hold so tightly to, which is probably why, I felt like my nerves were like on fire all the time, or my body would hurt or whatever. We hold on to that so tightly and resist that love because all we knew was that feeling of abandonment. Then we need to like rethink how we're going to do that. And that's the process I've been going through over the last year. And again, I'm not going to say that it's an easy process. You definitely need some kind of a support, whether you're supporting yourself through journaling, whether you're, you put a blanket around you and you just allow yourself to cry, or you have someone there just sitting there, not saying anything, and just maybe, and just holding your space. They don't even need to touch you in that moment. They just need to be there. Whatever works for you, find it. Find that comfort, find that support. And the more you find it, the more you start to see that you can actually support yourself, which is kind of cool, which is one of the things I'm finding, present tense, that I have always depended on other people to support me. And now I do these things on my own, and I'm like, oh, this is cool. My little girl, it's like, everything, you'll be good. And this is awesome. Talking to my little girl, I did not do that 5 years ago. Please, I wouldn't even look in the mirror or get near her. And she was scared, and I knew that, but I still couldn't do it because I thought I had done something wrong, and she knew she did something wrong. And, we just kind of missed each other, and it was, anyway. So what I'm saying here is that it's just a choice. Just choose. It's an opportunity for you to come back to your inner peace within yourself and find that glorious inner child who loves you incredibly, your inner little girl or your inner little boy, and just go and heal each other and live life and be peaceful. You can do it. The possibilities are endless. Again, 5 years ago, I would never be sitting here doing this. Ask anybody that knew me 5 years ago, that would be, what was 5 years ago? 2017. I was probably I was really in a bad place back then. Not such a great place, but it was an opportunity, and I took it and I walked through it, and there's still more journey to go, but it's worth it. I have to say it's worth it. And I am not a guru. I am just sharing my own experience with you. You are your own guru. You can do it. You can do the work. You can heal it. Just choosing to do it is the first step. Just making that choice. And if you feel like you have, excuse me, if you have any questions or you want to reach out, you feel me, whatever what I'm talking about, you just feel like there's a connection there. Excuse me, I need water and I don't have any. If you feel like there's a connection there, reach out. I'm here. That's what I do. That's what I'm here for. That's why I'm doing this. I still want to just share my experiences, and I'd love to get to meet you. And yeah, so hope you enjoyed the poem today, and I hope you have a wonderful moment, a beautiful life, and just choose. Thank you.